the objective of understanding what's the role of a young researcher could be in industry and what industry is asking from young researchers. And so here we have online our industrial representatives, so Rui Zhu, Nuria De Lama, and Africa Rial. Rui is from IBM, and Nuria is from Atos, and Africa is from HP. So we have three large companies, and maybe in the order that I used, Rui could start and could present herself and spend a few minutes in providing her opinion on this specific topic. So what's the relationship between industry and PhD studies in general, and how a PhD student could have an impact in, or a postdoc could have an impact in industry, and vice versa. What kind of impact could the industry have on PhD studies and young researchers? So first I would say Rui, then Nuria, and then Africa, okay? So please, the floor is yours, Rui.
Okay, if that's the case, I did prepare a few slides, and I'd like to share with you what IBM Research is like, and also what kind of career you may be able to have with IBM Research. So, so let me share my screen here. All right. So hi, everyone. My name again is Rui Zhou. I'm the director for IBM Research Europe, the Dublin lab here. So we're very, very happy to join everyone. I won't get into like, very long presentation, just a few minutes, give you some idea about IBM Research. So as you know, IBM is a very large company. And so research is a relatively small organization within IBM. So we started back in 1945 with a small group in New York. And after more than 70 years, now we have 3,000 researchers across the world in 14 different locations and 5 continents. And so if you take a look at, New Yorktown is our headquarters. We also have a lab in Cambridge. And so that's a joint effort with MIT. We also have semiconductor research and a fab in Albany, where you probably hear about a 2 nanometer technology. In US, we also have another lab on the West Coast in Silicon Valley called Almaden Research. Now in South America, we have in Brazil, both in Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo. In Europe, we have 3 locations. Zurich is the oldest lab. We also have 2 locations. One is in Dublin, where I'm based. We also have research facilities in UK as well. In Middle East, we have a research lab in Haifa. And in Africa, we have 2 locations, Nairobi and also Johannesburg. In Asia, we have quite a few locations as well. Tokyo Research Lab is the oldest one. And we also have a lab in India, New Delhi, and also in Bangalore, and a small lab in Singapore. And so IBM Research is not only the innovation engine for IBM, but we made a significant contribution to the science and technology development in the world. So over the years, we have 6 of our people received Nobel Prize, and also 6 people received Turing Awards. I also like to point out the first female to receive Turing Award is from IBM, is our dear Frances Allen. And so also there are other recognitions as well. We received 5 National Medals of Science and also 10 Medals of Technology from US government. For the last 28 years, IBM has been in the leadership position when it comes to patents issued by the US Patent Office. So just give you an overview about what a research organization looks like. You probably also say, okay, what do you do and what are the disciplines? And so our disciplines evolved over the years. So, back in 1940s, you can imagine it's pretty much mathematics and physics and chemistry. And over the years, we added, say, EE, material science. And lately, we got into artificial intelligence, cloud computing, Internet of Things, quantum computing. The list that goes on is fairly diverse. In terms of how we are organized to carry out research, we go by strategy area. And so in the middle here, you can see we have 4 technology pillars that are all aligned with IBM's core mission. We have hybrid cloud, we have AI, security, and quantum computing. And in each technology pillar, we have business goals. What are the objectives? How can we help our business, right? But we also have longer term science goals. What are the next frontier in the next 5-10 years? We also work very closely with our clients and partners. But we also have horizontal as well. For example, the impact science. How can we use the latest technology to make impact for health, for work, and for climate? And also another horizontal place is the future computing. We are seeing the emergence of different technology areas, how to integrate the bits, qubits, and neurons to create the next frontier of computing, right? And so that's also horizontal across different technology pillars. Exploratory science is another very, very important area. And in this area, we'll work closely with universities and to make sure that we always looking at next 10, 20 years. We also have a catalyst, we call it. It's really how we organize ourselves to support the research organization, including IT support, HR, finance, you name it. I won't get into details, but these functions are essential to support a research organization. So now I also like to share a story with you in terms of what career you could have. So I'd like to share with you my dear colleague and friend, Dr. Chiako Asakawa. And so Chiako is a very, very ambitious person. So at very young age, she dreamed to be an Olympic medalist in swimming. Unfortunately, at age 11, she got into an accident. And at age 14, she became completely blind. And so that did not deter her from achieving her goals and dream in her life. And so she finished a degree in English, and then also finished a 2-year programming in computer programming for people who are blind. Then she joined IBM. So IBM sponsored her and supported her to finish a PhD in engineering, and she got into research. So for decades, she really dedicated her life to developing technology for people like her who are visually impaired. And so I'm so proud to share with you that in 2019, Chiako, even though she never got an Olympic medal, but she was inducted into National Inventors Hall of Fame for her work that benefited millions of people around the world who are visually impaired. And so let me share a video with you about her latest work.
Okay, now let me show you the latest technologies. This is a smartphone app that we are working on.
51 feet to the door and keep straight. Take the 2 doors to go out. The door is on your right. Nick is approaching. Looks so happy.
Oh, hi, Nick.
Hey, Chiako.
Where are you going? You look so happy.
Oh, well, my paper just got accepted.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations.
Thanks. Wait, how'd you know it was me and that I look happy? All right.
Hi.
He is not talking to you, but on his phone. Potato chips. Dark chocolate with almonds. You gained 5 pounds since yesterday. Please take apple instead of chocolate. Approaching. You are right.
Now.
Okay, so this is the Chiako story. So you can see what kind of technology we're developing and how it can be used to benefit the people who need technology the most. All right, so one more slide, I'm going to end here. So in terms
Okay,
of how
now-
can you work with, work with IBM Research, right? And so we do have different opportunities. And for those who already graduated, we have job openings. You can also apply for internship. IBM also offers the PhD fellowship awards as well. Of course, there are other ways you can collaborate with us. I just want to highlight a few here. Sorry it takes so long, and for a quick introduction, I hope this gives you an idea about what IBM Research is, and also what sort of things we're working on, and also the opportunity to work with us. So with that, I'd like to thank you. Okay, so back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So now we give the floor to Nuria for her presentation, and then Africa, and then we will start with questions, okay? And so get ready to ask questions. Thank you very much, Rui, for the very nice presentation. Nuria, please.
Thank you very much, Elisabetta. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. And I'm really sorry that I cannot be with you, even though I'm living in Madrid. I've spent 8 years in Brussels. I came back recently to Madrid, and today that I'm here, I cannot go physically to the university. So I feel really sorry about that. I must confess that I had not prepared any presentation, but after checking the wonderful slides of my colleague, I feel now that maybe some of you do not know the company. So I have a look for a few slides about the company just for you to understand a bit better what we do, and maybe that will facilitate the discussion a bit later. So let me check if I can share my screen now, and you tell me when you see it. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, now we see it.
Okay, so it will be something very short. This is a long presentation. I will do only a few slides, and for sure just to motivate the discussion and to let you know what we are doing in Atos. So basically, we are a company focused on helping in the digital transformation of different companies in industries like telecommunications, energy, public sector, health, manufacturing, supply chain. So we help companies to understand what they can do with technologies. And something that has become vital in this respect, and we didn't talk about that in the past, is basically the data space. So the way companies use data, if they understand the benefits of data, what is the value in their data, how to do data sharing with others, how to do that in a secure way, and then looking very much at values related to sustainability. So I think that these words were not so typical in the past. When I was presenting the company, we were not talking so much about sustainability and decarbonization, but just to tell you that basically companies are also going through an evolution, and we are very much changing to something better, I hope. So basically, as mentioned, one of the things that has become extremely important for my company that is developing different technologies to customers is what we call the information space or the data space. And basically, to make this possible, we work very much in technologies like cloud computing, cybersecurity, big data and analytics, artificial intelligence, edge computing, and Internet of Things. You may add some others like quantum computing, where we are working heavily, also with colleagues like the ones that are here today in the panel. And basically, we use all these technologies in order to shape the future information space of our customers in different industries, ensuring that data can provide value to all of them. So just for you to get an idea of who we are, basically we are like 100. This is from end of 2020, so probably these figures are not very much updated, because the other thing that I've seen along my years of careers is that companies buy many of the companies. We buy, we sell, so basically numbers are changing all the time, but this gives you basically the scale of our company. So more or less we are 100,000, 120,000 experts, more or less, and we are placed in 73 countries. I think that at the time I'm speaking is 74 countries all over the world, 12 billion euro revenue. And something that you may know, maybe not, is that we are the IT provider for the Olympic Games. We are doing this since Barcelona, 1992, which is a quite interesting thing because it's like the biggest contract related to technology in the sports. And it's very curious because also thanks to this, we allow our employees, if they want to get engaged in activities that have to do with the Olympic Games, not only developing the technologies that may be used in this context, but many of them can also, as volunteers, go to the places where the Olympic Games happen. And when I talk about Olympics, it's also Paralympics and all the other winter games and things like that. So basically, there is even a program for employees where you can really volunteer to support in different activities, normally related to the technologies we deliver for the Olympic Games, but also for some other things. So that's quite curious. And I think it's a quite nice environment to see what you can do with technology. And then now we work very much in cloud computing and some other computing things. We are very well positioned in Europe and all over the world in some specific technologies. And in the last years, we have focused very much on sustainability and decarbonization, the way we can use all these technologies in order to improve the world, let's say like that, and in particular in these areas that I have mentioned. In the past, I remember that when I entered Atos, I've always been working in research, but Atos is a very big company, so there are many different divisions doing all kinds of things that have to do with technology. And what I saw is that customers were very traditional. So the way our salespeople were selling technologies was like all the time X, Y, and Z, like things that were very stable, technologies that have been proved, that were really mainstream in the market. And most of the customers didn't want to take any risk. So it was very difficult to sell things that were very innovative. And in the last years, the landscape has changed completely. And I think that innovation now is key to sell more technology. Customers want to be more competitive. And then for us as technology providers, that also imposes somehow a higher degree of innovation and not only being better than your competitors, that for sure it's an obvious thing, but also being able to improve yourself, increase your performance, have better KPIs or key performance indicators, and being, for example, more generous with our planet, with the people. So it's not only technology, but you need to take into consideration other values that are quite important when you are selling things to your to your collaborators or to your customers. And because of this reason, I think that research has become extremely important because it's precisely the source of that innovation. And sometimes it can be hard. So I don't know the discussions you had this morning, but what I've seen and what I have felt so far working in research and development, and I've been in these 20-something years, is that as in the past, it used to be quite difficult to go with some very cutting-edge innovations to some other departments in the company. Not all the people were listening to you because things were very far from the market and it was very difficult to sell them. So it was more difficult to convince some departments of the company to invest in specific research work, while now there was a completely change of mind. For example, here you see that we also publish a lot of patents, like 4,500 patents per annum. And this is precisely because we are encouraging all employees and not only the ones involved in research in improving their capabilities, in contributing to the company, generating patterns. And then if you are an employee and you generate a pattern, you are also rewarded by the company. So there is a clear movement towards innovation, being better, being more on the cutting edge technology. And then also this implies in many cases collaborating with many other companies. So that is also the other change that I've seen along all these years, that before we used to work more in isolation, let's call it like that. So a big company was able to do quite a lot of things in its own. But nowadays, I think it's very, very difficult. The challenges we have to face nowadays in the world in general, and this also applies to the digital sphere, are so huge that you really need to collaborate. And in fact, I'm happy to say that we have a lot of projects with the companies that are today here with me in this panel. So those are important things that you also need to consider when you think about your career and what you want to do. And this is the last slide that I will use for this presentation. Is as mentioned, innovation is extremely important. Before it was just an add-on of at least my company. Probably maybe for the case of the other colleagues, it was already in their DNA. But for Atos, what I saw is that when I entered the company, innovation was not so important, while now it is really key. And this is the way we present the company. There is a lot of investment in internal research and development. We have also set up research programs with other companies. So for example, we have strategic alliance with Siemens, and we do research projects together. And for sure, we collaborate with many other companies. And as part of that that somehow idea of fostering innovation, we have also set up different instruments internally in the company to understand the future and how this future could impact our business. And this is what we mentioned here as the internal scientific and expert communities. So these are specific communities set up by employees of the company, and in some cases also some external experts. And basically they define what will happen in the future, which I think is quite encouraging and quite challenging job. But I think it's very interesting to understand also how the socioeconomic aspects will really influence our world and the way this will change our business. And I'm sure that if you think about the way you used to do things when you started to study, they are completely different to the way you are doing things nowadays. And many of the reasons why things have changed so much is precisely because of the technology enablers. So I think that will also happen to our companies, and that's why it is very important that we do this kind of analysis of what the future will bring and try to shape it in the best possible way. We also work very much with open innovation and with startups, which is something that we didn't have some years ago. I think that in the last years, we have really invested quite a lot in this. Why? Because as a big company, of course, we do a lot of research, but it is true that sometimes we are not as agile as small companies. So I think this collaboration between big companies and very small ones is also quite interesting, and trying to look at win-win situations and relationships between the different organizations. Then for us, something that is quite nice is that we develop the technology, but for sure we sell this to many companies in many industrial sectors. And this allows us to understand very well the other needs and requirements of the market. So sometimes, and I saw that very much working in research in the last years, we used to propose things that were nice to have, but basically then no one in the real world may need them. So it was interesting from a scientific point of view. So we were able to improve something. We were able to do this thing in a better way or faster way, but then maybe it was not very cost effective. So we didn't understand very well which were the needs of the market. And I think that now this innovation cycle that has included all the customers on board is very interesting, because this allows us to understand basically which are the needs of the mobility business, which are the needs of public sector, the needs, the challenges, and also which are the barriers, because in many cases you may develop technology that is very good, but your environment may not be ready to accept and to adopt this technology. So understanding the overall context is quite important. And then, as mentioned, we have also established a lot of well-known partnerships with, of course, European companies, but also companies from all over the world. And here you have some examples like Google Cloud or Siemens or Worldline. And as mentioned before, now decarbonization and sustainability have also become key values in our company. So everything we do somehow has the touch of sustainability and decarbonization, and we try to contribute as much as we can to this kind of values and to have, let's say, responsible research. So I will also stop here. But I hope that at least this is a bit useful for you to understand what Atos does and what kind of company we are, what is also the scale, because some of you may not know it. And then just for you to get a better idea of myself, as mentioned, my name is Nuria de Lama, and I've been working in a department called Atos Research and Innovation, which is one of the research units of Atos, not the only one, but one of them. And basically what I did since I finished the university is related to research. I've also been working in many projects with customers, industrial projects, but always including a level of innovation or some pointers to research work. And specifically, I work very much in research projects for the European Commission. So executed in collaboration with many universities and many other companies. So collaboration is also part of the DNA of what I do, and I will be more than happy to answer your questions later on. And if my example and my career can give you some insights about what you could do in the future, the do's and the don'ts, so maybe things that you don't want to do, so then I will be more than happy to be in this panel. And then the floor is yours. Thanks again for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Nuria. So next one is Africa. Well, first, before giving the floor to Africa, let me remark that by chance today we have 3 women in the panel, which is really a record, but it was done by chance, but I'm very glad that we have been able to achieve this achievement, even if it was not done on purpose. So thank you, Africa, please go on.
Hi, thank you for inviting me here. it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to share the floor with these two ladies, and also to have you. It's a pity that we cannot share the same floor. I have not had the opportunity to travel to Madrid, even though we are closer, but at least we can, with this virtual environment, we can share some time and hopefully we can share some experiences. So as Nuria, I was not ready to prepare anything, but just I took some slides from my company just for you to have more an opportunity about what we are doing in HP. Before starting in HP, I wanted to talk to let you know I'm originally from Barcelona. I'm working for HP for more than 17 years already. I'm the R&D director for one of the business units that we have in Barcelona, that is the large format business. I will just in a minute, I will just use few slides just to show about what we are doing. I arrived 17 years ago to HP after being, you know, I'm a telecommunication engineer. Also, I complement my career with some master in sales and marketing and business administration master. And then I moved to several industries, communications, mobile communications. I also did some research in Germany. I spent a few time on there. And then I also have the opportunity to be more on the consumer side, working for Sony. And then after these experiences, I moved to the printing side, okay, of the HP business. Let me just to introduce really quick, because I'm sure that you will like to have some time for questions. So just 1 minute or two to give you a brief introduction about HP. Okay, yes, let me share. Okay. Can you see my screen? Not really.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay, now it's coming. Okay. About HP, at the end, our mission, it creates technology that makes life better for everyone and everywhere. This is our mission, the mission that we are trying to accomplish. You know that we had some, let me check if now, we have a innovation for our company. It's a very important piece of our culture, and you see these two guys that they started in 1939, Bill Hewlett and David Packard. They started, you know, with a very entrepreneurship spirit, with a very limited startup capital, okay, and they had a mission that was to provide technology that was helping people. So this culture is embedded in our, this innovation culture is embedded in our DNA as a company, and we continue trying to provide and to innovate in just looking for how to help people to continue advancing. As an HP, you know that HP has been, we have been also going through different spirits, and now we are, HP today is a 56 billion company in terms of revenue. We are about more than 50,000 employees overall worldwide. We have presence in more than 180 countries, and we generate more than 8,000. We have more than 28,000 patents. Okay, talking more especially about, I think all of you know HP. We are a company that we are providing, especially on the PCs space and on the printing space. We are generating different technologies and products. But I would like to just introduce to the HP Barcelona. Barcelona is the HP center that we have in Barcelona have worldwide responsibility. We are about 2,300 employees, with more than 700 R&D engineers. We have, this is one of the biggest R&D centers outside US. It's a US company, so it's one of the biggest, and we have a worldwide responsibility for two main business, the 3D business and the large format printer, the large format printing. Okay. We are already more than 35 years as a company, 30 years already in San Cugat, that is where we are based. Okay, and at the end, our main company culture is to not only to drive the innovation, but always keeping the diversity and the inclusion as one of our main important areas of differentiation. Okay, before going to as a company culture, I wanted just to let me just one moment share. We are of course doing. One moment. Sure. What we are trying to do every day is to do research, not only on the labs, but also every time, as Nuria was commenting, every time more is much more difficult to differentiate our products from our competitors, and the innovation, and not only innovation on the technology, but also the experiences that we are providing to our customers to differentiate is becoming much more relevant and important. So we are doing a lot of innovation inside our development centers, but also we have dedicated centers, dedicated HP labs, what we call, especially we have two locations, HP labs, one in Palo Alto and another one in Bristol. And you can see that we have different areas. We are especially focused those HP labs in three main areas: the 3D part, that is in an area that we are evolving, the microfluidics, okay, especially on the health care sector, and everything related to the security that every time is much more relevant and important in the nowadays that we are living. Okay, so if you are interested on pursue, there are many career opportunities. I will put it in the chat. The link, you can see here all the career opportunities that are offered in our research center. If you are interested to pursue any opportunity there, I will be more than happy. And if you have any doubt or whatever, I will be more than happy to give your link to help you to going through all the opportunities. Okay, so giving you back.
It's strange to do things like this, no, without seeing the people. We don't know.
Yes, we don't have the reaction yet.
I don't know if there is a way.
So my question is, why is it good for a young person finished a PhD between 30 and 35 to start with a huge company like IBM, Atos, or HP, and not to start in a small startup next door where I can easily see my family?
Okay, so the question by Gregor is why is it important or useful for a student who finishes the PhD, so it is not so young, to start with a company, with a large company as you are, rather than with a smaller company, maybe closer to home and to the family? So who wants to start first? It is a basic question.
Yeah, this is Roy. If you don't mind, I can start. I think it all depends, what you want to do. And even within IBM, we have different opportunities. You have development, working very closely with product division, right? But you also have research. You're working on cutting edge new technology, and some are very exploratory and some are closer to, products. Also, large company versus small company. In IBM, we have 76 years in research. We have our methodology. We have a lot of good mentors you can learn from. There are so many training classes you can take. You can travel to, the world-class conferences, for example, in AI, triple AIs or Europe's, and we support those kind of further education and development of skills. So it's all about what do you want to do? And number two is, okay, so where you want your career to be in research, or you want to actually go to startup and make something cool. So it's really, I would say, the personal choice.
Yeah, I would say the same. For Atos, we also have many different kind of jobs and opportunities. So I think that it depends on what the person wants to do. And I wouldn't say that a big company is better than a small one or vice versa. In fact, I started my career in a very small company. I spent 5 years in an engineering company. In fact, that was born also from the collaboration with the Politécnica University of Madrid, where you are now. And I was also very happy there. Then when I jumped to Atos, it was a completely different environment with good and bad things, because a big company, of course, it gives you a lot of opportunities. The main thing that I felt when I moved to Atos as a change is that in the small company, I was able to do a lot of interesting things, but I was doing a lot of everything. Then in Atos, I could also focus on some things, because since there are so many people doing so many things, they can afford having people very much focused on very specific topics if you want to go deeper into those topics. And then I had the capabilities to lead huge projects, which is something that when you are in a small company, you cannot do. But this doesn't mean that the job is less interesting. You can be in a startup and of course have a lot of challenges, and if it is a very technological startup, it could be something of great interest where you learn a lot and also very much related to research components. So I wouldn't say that one or the other thing is better or worse. It depends also on the philosophy of the person and the challenges you want to face. In a small company, you work normally in a different way, and but I think that both can be good or bad depending on the personality and the career you want to have. And still, I think that you are all very lucky, because probably none of you will have any problem to find a job. So we are here even saying that we have opportunities in our companies, because I think that now there are a lot of difficulties to find good people, not because there are not good people, but it's because we really need a lot of people with digital skills, with knowledge on some of these technologies. And not only because I think that's something that is particularly appreciated by companies, is that you have also capabilities to sense the context, commercial capabilities, the possibility or the skills to relate to people, to work in collaboration with others, to speak languages, to understand also the economics of the world. So in fact, to have the right components to make your job even more valuable. And I think that companies will have difficulties to find people like that. So the good thing is that in any case, you will be in a position of selecting the job you want to get, and probably you will not have problems to have a job. So you are in a privileged position, and you should also appreciate that very much.
Yeah, for me, I think from smaller or bigger, I would say that some of the factors that are differentiating is the funding that you are devoting to research. Normally, the big companies, they have a bigger, I would say, funding for doing research, not only development, but also research. This is one aspect that is different. The second one is the access to the infrastructure and to the well-established processes. Because at the end, as you are saying, and we with companies that they are already working for several years on research, the processes and the infrastructure that they are using is well settled down, and the access for talent, you can access to many people that are already having a lot of experiences. And I think when you are starting, what you will appreciate also is to be surrounded for many people with a lot of talent that can help you to grow and to accelerate and to speed up, especially in the early years. Once you have speed up, once you have all this access to the infrastructure and trainings and so on, later on you can decide, of course, to go to pursue your next career movement to bigger companies or to smaller companies, because you will have put all the ingredients in your backpack to decide what you want to move on.
Thank you very much. You have other questions? We have some questions, please. You ask your mask.
How much freedom to research have such big companies? Is it like something that they are told they have to research a certain topic, or can they like change the topic into something that they think makes more sense, or they are more interested in, or how does that look like?
Okay, so I repeat the question. So how much freedom does the researcher have in the company in choosing the research topic, essentially this one, or to what extent this researcher has to comply to some specific requirements by the company.
Maybe we can follow the same order. This is easier. We don't hear you. You're muted.
Mute. All right, so I'm mute. For the same order, I'll go first. Yeah, I would say I cannot comment on IBM product divisions, right? Because they have their priorities and focus, and I can speak for IBM Research. In IBM Research, we have a variety of different technology areas I already showed, right? 4 pillars, you have a horizontal, horizontal areas as well. We also have exploratory research. You have a lot of options in terms of what you want to work on. And in terms of horizon, we have Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3. Some are more near term, some are much longer term. We have opportunities working with universities, pursue EU funding, form a consortium, working with the local Irish government funding agencies, right? So a lot of choices. We also encourage our researchers spend some time working on exploratory research as well, because we always need to look for new frontiers, right? And so I would say a lot of flexibilities within the research organization at IBM.
I think that in the case of Atos, it really depends on where you work exactly, because we have many different research departments, and in some of them, there is more flexibility than in some others. For sure, it depends on the funding we have, and there are some research projects that are very much aligned with roadmaps that have been defined with customers. So for sure, there are some boundary conditions and some requirements. And of course, if a researcher wants to do something that is completely out of the scope of what has been agreed, for sure, you will not have full freedom to do whatever you want. You do that at home. But having said that, research is per se an environment where you have quite a lot of flexibility. And in general, if you are very good at something, the important thing is that the job that you do should have an impact at some point in time, even if it is a long-term impact. But if there is high quality in the work you are doing, I think that this will be appreciated by the company. And if there is a value, no one should stop you to do that. But if there is a value that is perceived just by you, then there is a problem. So for sure, there will always be conditions because you are working in the context of a company. But in any case, as mentioned, research is still a quite a flexible environment where you have a lot of flexibility, as commented by the previous colleague. And also, you can also, if you are doing something you don't like very much, I think that what big companies offer you, and here I agree also with Africa, is that normally you have a wide umbrella of places where you can position your job, or you can change from one position to another, from one technology to another, if that is your wish, because of course there are some people that are working on the same technology for many, many years, but the technology landscape evolves also quite quickly. And in some cases, I've seen careers of people that started as experts in one technology, but that has evolved quite a lot. And 20 years later, the technology is completely different, or maybe the technology they studied is very much obsolete or has become just a small basis for another thing. So then it doesn't only depend on you, also on the context that may evolve and bring you to different places that you didn't expect in the very beginning. I don't know why I see myself so big. I see my picture extremely big there.
Okay, so from my side, I will say that one of the important differences between applying academic research or research in the industry, it doesn't matter if it's in IBM, in Atos, or in HP, is that in academic research, normally we do some research with the objective of just learning, okay? In the industry, at the end, it should be aligned with the business objective of the company. And of course, normally the company, due to their mission or their strategy, they decide which is the strategy and what are the areas that they want to be, they want to have a play. And then you have specific areas that can be really broad, so big like 3D or manufacturing or whatever. No, it can be they can be really broad, but normally the company defines which are the strategic pillars when they want to have play in that industry. And inside these areas, you can have different freedom in the project, but at the end, as a company, we need to deliver business results. We need to deliver something that, and there will be some projects in research that they don't, you do it and they don't end up in anything into the market. This is also research. We spend some time, and sometimes we don't release anything to the market, but our objective is to apply this research to something that will be productized and bring it to the market. So it should be really aligned with the business objective of the company, and always trying to see how we can apply this research to provide something that can be released to the final customer.
Just to add another thing, I think that the important decision for people is to think if they really want to do a research-oriented career or if they want to do another kind of job. Because finally, working in technology, there are lots of things are somehow similar because you still work in very innovative technology, but I think there is a difference if you work in research or you want in projects directly delivered to customers. So that is important. And then if you really want to go to a research career, then there are different environments. And I think that our colleague from IBM, I am not able to pronounce your name, I'm sorry, it's very difficult. So she has mentioned also different environments where you can even have a research career. You can work in national programs, you can work with research programs with customers or collaborators. You can work also in the context of public funding coming from US institutions or from the European Commission if you are placed in Europe. And I have spent more than 20 years working in this kind of European Union environments, and I appreciate that very much. And of course, it depends again on your personality, what you like and what you don't like. But I think that there are also different routes, and the typology of the job is quite different. At least I told you what I like to work in this kind of environment. I really like social interaction. I don't like staying just in a lab doing experiments all the time, which is of course very good for some people that like that. I really like getting in touch with many researchers from all over the world and understanding what other organizations are doing, not only looking internally at Atos, where we have lots of experts, and for sure I have access to that information, but I also like very much share experiences and work together with universities, with research centers, with other companies, big, small, to know what innovators are doing in the context of startups, on innovation agencies, and looking at many different sectors. I also like having a look at what is going on besides the pure technology development. So, for example, understanding what's happening with the regulation, which are the steps that the European Commission is taking with respect to definition of policies, understanding which are the barriers when you want to deploy a technology in one country or another one, what's happening now with data, if you need to keep your data in Europe, if you want to comply with EU values, or you can really have your data in the servers of Amazon in US. So understanding all those aspects are also quite interesting to take decisions sometimes about technology, about future products, future services. And I personally like very much participating in exercises to define and shape the future. And for example, in this context, the European Commission gives you the opportunity to take part in these kind of exercises that for me are rewarding. For some other people, that may not be the case because it may seem a very abstract job. And some people need to see very tangible things where you develop something and very quickly you see what you have developed. So again, this has to do very much with the personality of people and what you like and what you don't like, but it's important to understand that all these options are on the table and then starting with those that generate more enthusiasm to you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Noria, you just said, and also Africa, you said, in terms of alignment with a corporate mission. And so that's why I showed you within IBM Research, our strategic areas, those pillars and also horizontals, those are quite well aligned with IBM's overall mission and the corporate mission. But on the other hand, we also emphasize a lot in terms of science for social good. For example, what Chiako is working on, those are not products. Those are IBM's contribution to the society for people with disabilities, right? And so that's also a very important aspect in terms of the corporate mission, in terms of revenue, profit, yes, but also social good as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there was another question here.
in the previous session, we discussed open science. So my question is, what are the differences between researching in a company compared to an open science model? And do you share research results or keep them private? And do you think it is positive for the research community, or could it be slowing the research and the global knowledge?
Okay, so the question is related to open science. We have had a session before this one focusing on open science. So the question is, how do you see open science essentially? If you keep your results for yourself, and I think this has been partially addressed by your previous answers, and also whether you have the feeling that open science could slow down the development and therefore your time to market, or whether you see it as a good factor, right? Okay, so please.
Okay, so I'll start since the pattern has been set. And so I think that's a very, very good question. It's also a question we're exploring the answers as well, because I mean, open source is a new trend, right? IBM acquired Red Hat a few years ago. That's a open source company, and we are more and more going in that direction, open source and open science. And where do we draw the boundary? I think it's still a question and something we need to explore together. Love to hear from your view, Noria, and Africa.
Good answer. So I think that it depends on the specific topic. By definition, the projects where I'm involved are very much in favor of open science, and most of the things that we release are even open source software and sometimes even open source hardware. So in general, I work in a very collaborative environment, and this implies sharing the intellectual property. And for sure, since it is partially funded by public funds, for sure, we try to make all the results available for everyone. All or almost all, so by definition they are open. But then in the context of the company, for sure there are some projects that are funded just because there is a specific issue that we want to research that will be key maybe to the competitiveness of the company. So for sure I see there is an interest to keep it for a company because it will be somehow your investment. And you cannot open that to everyone. But what I can also tell you is that life shows that many of the things that we have to solve, as I studied my intervention today, are global challenges. And for many of the things, we are obliged to share things. Sometimes it doesn't mean that everything is fully open. But for example, one of the areas where we are working together, many of the companies, is standardization. And this requires for sure reaching agreements between companies. And the more open you make them, the easier you create a market. So there are many things that by definition require collaboration and every time more openness. Then sometimes it can be open source, but maybe there are also some other business models that are also appropriate and valid depending on the purpose. And for sure, this doesn't prevent companies from having a concrete investment that will be really key to their competitiveness. And for sure, you keep it private because it will be the source of your future business.
Yeah, for me, the answer will be, it depends on the area. There are areas that are strategic for us, that as a company we are investing. And of course, there will be the patents that were created for that mission to protect your intellectual properties as a way also of differentiated against competitors and against other players in the industry. But it's also true that every time more the collaboration across company, universities, or across companies are increasing and increasing. And I will say that we are, for instance, on the printing industry, we are even working head to head with competitors in order to define the newest standards because at the end, if you want to progress, you cannot be alone. You need to, if you want to change the way of printing or the way of doing things, you need to really put the main players in that industry, work together, competitors or not, work together and define the new standards of the future in order to progress and to advance. And there is where we work all together in order to define the future. And I think that's why it depends on the area. There will be more IP protected. There will be areas that will be full open and collaboration with universities and other companies. And in other spaces, there will be full collaboration in order to define the standards of the future.
Thank you. Do you have other questions? Maybe I have a question, a general question that may be interesting for our audience, which is, do you, when you hire a PhD, a person with a PhD, does this person follow a different path compared to a person with a different degree, such as a master degree or a bachelor degree? Is there any, let's say, recognition of a specific title, or you base your hirings more on the types of experience that the person has? Yeah, and so if there is a specific path, a specific type of career for PhDs in your company.
Yeah, from IBM research perspective, we hire PhDs, we have master degree or bachelor degree. And so, we also have the notion of a research scientist. Research scientists, we do require PhD degree and also, postdoc experience, okay, or professional hire, we call it, right? But on the other hand, if some PhD people, they come and join our company and decide, hey, I actually would be more interested in developing code and developing prototype, this person can switch over to software engineer path. So in our technical path, we have software engineers, we have research scientists. So depending upon the person's interest and also degree, typically an RSM research staff member does require a PhD degree. For people with master degree and bachelor degree, those are typically software engineers. So I hope this answers the question.
Thank you.
In the projects where I'm personally involved, there is not a big difference. Maybe having the PhD can be your ticket to enter the company or not entering the company. If you are looking for someone that is highly specialized on something, probably you will have a preference for someone that has already developed a PhD in that. Then, of course, there are some aspects where this is especially valuable and appreciated. And I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, the scientific community. For sure, this is a recognized environment of experts in the company that help in developing many of the roadmaps and interesting things of the company. And having a PhD, I wouldn't say it's mandatory, but in general is the normal thing if you want to be in that kind of fora. But if you are doing very good job, and it's not mandatory, but in principle for some of the areas, that's always something valuable and appreciated. But in the context of my projects in particular, if you don't have a PhD, but you develop well your job and you show that you progress on these things, not. But there are some specific areas where for sure you need someone that has already gone through several years around the same topic. And when you require already this high level of expertise on something, we look specifically for PhDs because they are the ones that can already prove that kind of experience and knowledge.
Yeah, in HP, I will say that depends on the position that you are looking for and the type of skills that you are looking for. I will say that having a PhD is always a plus, but it's also true that depends on what you are looking for, because you can be a PhD, but you are interested, I don't know, to continue your career on the development side, being a software engineer, then it will be fantastic, and we will be really happy to have a PhD with us, because this guy or lady will be much more, I will say, diverse, and the studies that this person has will enable in the future doing not only the development role but other roles. If we are looking for a position where a specific knowledge area is looked for, having someone with a PhD that has more specific knowledge developed in this specific area, sometimes is the must, is the condition that we are looking for entering into the company and acquire that position.
Thank you. Maybe while our audience here think at other questions, you may want to ask them some questions or give some specific advices or provide some comments. If you have something to tell to them while they think, that would be great.
I would say, if you're still in school, right, I would say use the intern opportunity to try different things and to see what would you like. In our case, we have, always every year we hire interns. And most of our employees actually are hired through the intern pool because we get to know each other, right? It's mutual. We get to know the intern gets to know us, and it's a new mutual fit. We said that, okay, let's hire them. So one is, I would say internship extremely important and take advantage of that. And also be open-minded, in terms of career. If you're not sure, going for PhD, not PhD, work for a few years and then decide, what you want to do next. So these, I would say, my advice if you don't know what to do and if you want to try different things.
Yeah, I have a question. Of course, I cannot see the people that are there. We see the back, so I don't know the age. I understand that all people are doing their PhD or studying still at the university. I'm not sure if that's the case. It would be good to understand which are the values they have when to look for a job. What is their main worry or the values that they have? Because I've seen an evolution also in the different generations. Now I don't hire people personally, but for many years I was hiring a lot of people. And I have seen a change in the things that people want to get when they enter a company. In some cases, it was just money, it was time. They wanted to have short working days. In the past, when I started to work, people wanted to work a lot, to learn a lot. They didn't feel uncomfortable if they were slaves of the company because they wanted a lot of hours there to learn a lot of things. Now I see a lot of values also related to sustainability. People want to pick up companies that are really responsible with the planet, with the people, with social values. It would be good to understand which are your values, if the money is very important or not. Because one of the problems that at least I see as a European company in comparison to the offers of companies that come from other parts of the world, but here we have some colleagues that are not that are also coming from US and other countries, is the salary part. So we have a lot of difficulties to retain talent when someone has a very impressive profile. Normally, for example, if you are working in artificial intelligence, you may be tempted to go to US because your salary will be higher, or especially to China because your salary will also be very high, and then you will get access to a lot of data because there is no constraint about the data you can access to. As you know, it's a completely different regime. So it would be good to understand basically what you like and what you don't like, and which are somehow these values that are motivating you now to choose one job or another.
Any feedback?
So not only to understand the interests of our company, but also to understand your own interests. What are you looking for?
That's an excellent question.
An opportunity for you to try to influence the market from the other perspective.
But from my perspective, everyone or almost everyone wants to learn a lot of new things when you go to a company. But I think that nowadays it's very important the job conditions. At least for me, I want to feel that the company wants me, but wants to treat me well, and not just only me to generate money. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be a resource. I want to be a person, and that the company cares about me.
Great. So your name?
Victor.
Victor made a good point. He said, I want to be a person. I don't want to be a resource. I don't want to be somehow exploited by the company. I want to be to understand that the company is valuing me for myself and is giving me opportunities, I guess, to grow up, etc.
Very important. That is also why it is very important to have the right level of management capabilities. I think that is also very important that companies take care of the management style of the colleagues, because somehow they show the attitude towards employees. So I think what you have mentioned is very, very important. I suppose that all of us want that.
I would agree. At IBM, especially in research, right? I mean, for our people manager, the number one priority is our people. The most important thing is to care people and help people develop their career. So I'm glad to hear that. That's what what you're looking for. So we offer that.
Any other? One thing I am currently valuing a lot, which I think is very difficult with industry, is one aspect is the flexibility, meaning that I get to organize my time maybe a bit more tailored to myself. Of course, there's conferences and deadlines, but when some research fails, you don't feel responsible that maybe the company is falling apart because you got some negative results and so on. So I feel like this is some sort of pressure that I would potentially feel if I would go to the industry. And then the other aspect is that I'm a very curious person, which is why I was drawn to academia. And I'm not sure that this is potentially something that the industry allows, since of course what the value of the company is and how the business model is created might tailor where your research is heading, right? So you cannot always explore so far, and you have to think about the benefits that the company would gain from your research.
So you were commenting flexibility. I would say that it's very important area, especially nowadays, and all this COVID situation that we have lived. I think we have accelerated in HP, for instance. One of the main values is to provide flexibility in terms of schedule and I would say days to work in the office and so on. With all this COVID situation, I will say that all this movement has been accelerated, and all this remote work, we have been forced somehow to work remotely and to work in a different way that we were used to. And I will say that thanks to all this, I will say, digital transformation that has been accelerated due to the pandemic that we all have lived, this has been accelerated in all the companies in general. And I will say that the flexibility is something that we have found out how we can work in a different way, remotely, in a different, I will say, a better work-life balance, especially the ones that we have kids, that sometimes you don't mind to work hours, but you need to work in a different moments of the day. You need to, I don't know, I start working really early in the morning, but then I stop earlier in the afternoon because I need to pick up my kids from the school, and then I will continue if I need to give something, or I will continue next day. So I think the flexibility in general, that's something that we will need to take care and to be sure that we are providing this. About what you are, I would say in general, my advice is that you need to look for things that you find passion about what you are doing, but because you are spending a lot of hours working in normally, this is a big part of your daily life. So look for things that you that you have fun, that you are passionate about. And if you are not, because sometimes you are in projects, or you just go test, try. And if in the moment that you don't have fun or you don't have passion about this, then it's the moment that you need to change and look for another opportunity. But try as much as things as possible, because even though you believe that this is not something for me, sometimes just trying different aspects, it can help you to understand better what you are looking for or what you want in your working life.
Yeah, in Atos, regarding the flexibility, since I entered the company, I think it's always been very flexible, even before COVID. I think that research is also a quite special environment. And since in our case, most of us have to travel quite a lot, of course, if the company asks you to be flexible and suddenly you have to take a flight at 6 o'clock in the morning, or you come back at midnight, for sure there should be flexibility on the two sides. So I've always been working with that kind of flexibility. And as you have mentioned, sometimes there are deadlines and you have to work a lot of hours. It's like if you have an exam at the university, of course you have to pass it and you have to make the effort. But it is true that I think that this flexibility is recognized by everyone as a source of value, and people need to feel comfortable, because that's the way to be more perform better. No, I would say if you are not happy, your performance will be worse for sure. So I think that's important. I personally have been teleworking for many, many years because I moved to Brussels 8 years ago. I was still working for the Spanish brand of Atos. And personally, I don't like teleworking at all, but I was allowed to do that because I needed that for personal reasons. So I've been going through that all the time, even before COVID. And I think that now with COVID, as Africa has mentioned, this has been accelerated, and I think that it is common practice. At this very moment in my company, I think that people go to the office once per week only. For sure, you are allowed to go there more times if you want, but basically, I think that people got used to organize their life in a different way, and this is somehow respected. At least that's what I see in Atos. It's always been very flexible from that point of view. You also mentioned an aspect about responsibility, that you feel like responsible, that something will not work well. At least also what I've experienced so far is that a lot of work happens in collaboration. So you are in a team and you are very seldom the only responsible for a result. I think that also when you work well and you put everything that is needed to do a good job, then if results do not come with that job, everyone will understand. So that's normal life. People will always appreciate your effort. The problem is if you don't put effort or you don't put energy in doing what you have to do, then results may be good or may be bad, because sometimes there are also some other factors that you cannot control. So everyone acknowledges that. And maybe that brings me to the point that Africa mentioned again before about feeling enthusiastic and passionate about what you are doing. And I think that's extremely important. And you have to test, because sometimes you go to a place and it is not the place you would like to be. And even sometimes it's not that it's not the place that you don't like, it's that it also depends on the period of your life. Maybe in a phase of your life, you feel comfortable in one environment, and then maybe later you will feel more comfortable in another environment. So that is also something to consider.
Yeah, and I also like to add my comment as well in terms of the flexibility. And IBM is always, a strong advocate of a work-life balance or flexibility. Where we focus on is not really, from what hour to what hour in the office, really the outcome and also your productivity. That's most important. If you can also work around, your family situation, that's what we support. And the second comment is on the risk of failure. I would say in research, failure is something we accept, because you try new things, they don't always work, and most time they don't work, right? So you need to recognize, okay, and what lessons do you learn, and how do you move forward from the failure? So that's very important. So you don't really have to say everything got to work. No, not necessarily. So I think also Nora, you mentioned it's collaboration, is in a teamwork environment. We don't really blame on when individuals say, hey, it's all your fault. Not at all. The culture is collaboration. Let's fail fast and learn fast and move on. So that's a culture we have here. And you also mentioned about a curiosity. Curiosity is very, very a key element in research. That's very important. But it is also true, we talked about it earlier, alignment with a corporate mission is very important as well. But within that framework, for example, if you say, hey, quantum is something I'm excited. If you're working on AI, you want to switch to quantum, that's perfectly fine. If you say I want to work on astronomy, maybe that's too far-fetched, from IBM perspective, right? Maybe you should consider a job somewhere else. So these are my comments to the 3 points you mentioned: the flexibility, risk of failure, and also your curiosity.
Thank you very much. Maybe Africa, since it is basically time to close, but you did not get your turn in providing a comment or a question for the audience. If you have something to comment, that's the right moment, I guess.
I don't have any specific question.
Okay. Is there any specific question or comment from the audience? Something you want to say before closing? And there is a. Yeah, actually, we are supposed to stop now at 6 and to have the reception. But if you have a comment or question, I think we can take like a few. Come here, because we have this. You have to stay here. Okay. Maybe there is Pilar, because from IBM.
Yes, I am from IBM, so thank you all, and thank you for representing us from IBM Research. I just wanted to let you know that within IBM, we also support the PhD students, and we have once per year a fellowship awards. Okay, so we grant some awards to people that are doing PhD. We have already announced the submission of the candidatures for this year, and the focus areas are hybrid cloud, security, quantum, and artificial intelligence. Since we are a technology company, maybe we cannot focus in this kind of areas. So I think it is something that it is for your career, but in case you are interested, we can share with you, the URL where there are the conditions for the candidatures, in case you want to have some options. Good luck.
Maybe you can write it there. Okay. Like the thing.
Because is anything else you want to say about this, or you were? Or...
Actually, we need to thank also IBM for sponsoring this workshop in particular, and general the workshop and the travels, etc.
We need to thank you because we want to be close to the innovation, and you are the ones doing the innovation. So thank you. And okay, just good luck. I want to say that because I think it will be value for you to have the option to be granted and to have some money, because we know also that's important for research. So if we can collaborate, then I think it was worth it to mention. I will stop now.
Right. Okay, thank you. So thank you very much to everybody for attending, in particular to Roy, Nuria, and Africa for being here with us, even though only virtually. I do hope that next time we will have something that is more physical or less hybrid, let's say. But I have to admit that in the end, the hybrid mode is a good way to involve people who otherwise will not be able to attend. And I think we can get advantage of this opportunity to have them speaking to us, talking to us, and giving us some insights. So I do hope that the basic message, the take-home message that I could get from this discussion is that industry in the end is not, the monster that is trying to eat everybody. It is, in some sense, there is not much difference between industry and academia. Of course, there are also differences, but in reality, there are groups of people everywhere, and the idea is to try to collaborate to reach a certain objective. And that's all. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you to the other panelists. Very nice discussion.
Yeah, very nice to meet you as well. So it's such a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you.